a minute. Awesome. So, welcome, you guys, Integrative Coaching crew. We got Caleb Fong tonight. Caleb is actually one of my mentors. This is a guy that I look up for. I get a lot of insight from. He has opened my eyes as far as why I do the majority of what I do day in and day out. I was raised with the mentality of like, you just work hard and you get rewarded one day. Well, I worked hard for about a decade in my previous job, never got that reward, had to go in on myself. And then when I was going all in on my business and all these other things, I let a lot of other parts of my life slide. And he's just like, well, why are you working so hard if it's, you're not really getting, like, if your life's going down with it kind of thing. So what he really shifted for me is, finding like almost like pride in like other things and not just being all one dimensional of like, I'm 100% a parent or I'm 100% a business owner. I'm 100% fill in the blank for you guys. It's all about like, living your best life. So without further ado, Caleb, you're muted right now, but unmute yourself and give her hell.
Awesome. Appreciate you, dude. What's up, everybody? I don't know if I've spoken to a lot of you before or if you've seen me before, but appreciate the awesome introduction from Ryan as per usual. And I'm excited to talk to you all today about beating self-sabotage and showing up as your highest self. I'm going to try and make this as fun as possible. And to do that, I need your engagement. So I always love to understand like where you all are in this process and sort of where you are in this journey. So if I ask for feedback, would love even just inside of the chat to message something. You don't have to unmute yourself if you don't want to. In the chat's probably a lot easier for all of you. I know you're out doing things and moving around, so it'll be much easier in the chat. So I'm just going to get started and start talking a little bit about this. And then as we move along, I'll be asking for your participation so I can help you the most. So we're talking about self-sabotage. First off, I think it's important to understand and define like what self-sabotage is and to understand it a little bit better. I like to think of self-sabotage as self-destructive behavior. And it's a really weird concept because we have to be first self-aware that we are self-sabotaging in order to correct it. And a lot of the times the behaviors that we do when we're self-sabotaging are subconscious. We don't even know that we're doing them. They have just become defensive reactions to things, and they end up leading to a self-destructive pattern. So I want to ask you all, and you can pop this into the chat and we'll see what everybody says. What are some forms of self-sabotage that you do in your day-to-day basis towards accomplishing whatever goals you want to accomplish? Can you just list them out? Just start popping some things in the chat and we'll see what kind of commonalities we see. What are some self-sabotaging behaviors that you do on a day-to-day basis when you're trying to accomplish your goals, if you are aware of them?
And everything that I'm putting in the chat is like something I do. So this is not just
Yeah.
like, hey, I think you guys could do this. Like, this is Ryan Murphy. So my bad.
And I'll give some examples if you're, struggling as well. Self-sabotaging behaviors can be as simple as a thought to yourself that you have when something happens. It can be, oh, I'm planning to go work out, but then you don't set your alarm for it. Or you set your alarm, but you don't plan what you need ahead of time, and then you get out 45 minutes later. Or, you do really well during the day with tracking your calories and macros, but then you coincidentally stop tracking, just put away your phone when you go have your snacks at night. All right, cool. Let's see this. So Ryan's is wandering in the fridge after I hit macros. There it is. Not tracking weekends or times when it's a little bit more difficult. Megan says, telling myself I can't make something happen for whatever reason. Awesome. Riley, really, I hope I'm saying your name right. Sleeping in and then not going to the gym later in the day. Love it. Crystal, trying to reason myself into having something I shouldn't. Okay. Audrey already had one cookie, might as well have two or three, and it continues. Gina, not meal prepping, not meal planning the week, and then ending up with fast food. Okay, cool. I think we can all relate to a lot of these. There's some thumbs up on a few of them. I see head nodding, like, yep, those are all me. Okay, cool. So everyone has similar patterns here. And I'm going to bet that there's a lot of self-sabotaging behavior that you don't even know exists. It is so subconscious and so normal for you that it's not even to you considered self-sabotage anymore. It's just part of the day. Okay. And what I want you to understand first is the impact that self-sabotage does have when we are trying to get to our goals before we can understand how to break self-sabotage, because it is beatable, I promise. Okay. It's something I struggled with for so long. Self-sabotage used to run my life, and I would verbally even express that to people, to my partner, to my therapist. I'd be like, I self-sabotage every day, and I know that I do. I'm very aware of it. I know when it's happening, yet I can't change it. And that alone is super frustrating, right? I see a couple of you nodding your heads like, you know what happens. I mean, clearly, you all just defined what you do for self-sabotage, which makes me understand that you know you do these things. You are very aware of them, yet we continue to do them. So I want to ask you all, because you have the answers in you. I'm curious if you know or aware of these answers. Why? Why do we continue to self sabotage? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Why do we continue to self sabotage when we know what's happening? And yet we know that it is not conducive to hitting our goals. And it puts us into a negative state, all those things. Why do we continue to do it? Does anyone have any idea? Pop it into the chat if you do. Again, no right or wrong answers. It's who we are, our identity. What else? Anyone have any ideas? We're human for sure. Maybe. Routine of doing it. It's easier for sure. Okay. I'm going to argue a lot of these points in a second. My job is to challenge you here and show you a different way potentially. Anything else? Afraid of change. It's our comfort zone. Okay, cool. Habit, far too long. Yep, hard to break the cycle for sure. All of these are true. Totally. All right. Let's go through these a little bit and then we'll get to the root of this all. And I hope this connects for you. Molly says because we're human. Okay. And Molly, you also said like habits or far too long. And I'm not picking on you. I'm going one by one, by the way. You said you're human. To me, generally speaking, I think humans always want to do the right thing most of the time. I think humans want to succeed. They want to treat themselves well. They want to do those things. So saying like we're human almost feels like it's a human trait to self-sabotage. I would disagree. I think it's a learned trait that we do as we develop as humans. So we'll get to that in a second. I just want to address some of these. Routine of doing it for sure. We get in a habit of doing things, it becomes norm, right? It is easier to self-sabotage. Why? Because typically the process to get to our goals is a little bit harder. Get to where we want to be requires some more effort, 100%. Crystal, afraid of change. It's our comfort zone. Yes. Okay. Agreed on that as well. It is more comforting. It's easier to stay the same than it is to change until the pain becomes too much. Megan says it's hard to break the cycle. It for sure is. So let's combine all of this into the real root issue here. And at first, this may be hard to accept because it was hard for me to accept as well. I didn't want to believe it. The real answer here, and that I've learned over a long period of time of self-sabotage, and I'll explain it more in a second, is that we want to be right. We want to be correct. And you're like, what the hell does that have to do with any of this? We want to be right naturally. It is in our nature most of the time to be correct about an outcome of something. Now, how does this relate to self-sabotage? Most of us, all of us, are more familiar with failing than we are with succeeding. Since we were children, we're used to that. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. Right? That's not failing, we take as negatives, but failing means you fell on your bike and then you learned how to get back up and do it again. Failing means that you thought you were going to be, a superhero at age 2, and then you weren't. And then you're like, oh, wait, hold on, maybe I can't do that. Failing meant, oh, I can't go have all the food I want or all the candy I want as a kid, even though I thought I could. Okay, so we fail much more then we succeed. And that has transferred over into our adulthood. So if we can just accept really quickly, and this will lead us to the point of the fact that we are more comfortable with failure than we are with success. Okay, if we can just accept that first, that's the first point of self-awareness we need to understand, is that we are much more comfortable with failure than we are with success, which means we have much more of an expectation for failure than we do for success. So what does that have to do with us being right? Well, this is what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's the hardest thing to accept, in my opinion. It's when we go, you know what, here's my goal, but I'm probably going to mess up. Am I worthy of accomplishing this after everything I've done and tried? Do I really have what it takes? Or am I going to fail again, just like I have in the past? And there's a part of your brain that so desperately wants to be right about yourself, even if it's something bad, even if it's something that's not conducive to your goals, even if it's something that leads you into a worse place. If you were right about the situation, you at least have that dopamine hit of going, I was right. So we subconsciously do these things out of defense. Our natural reaction is defense to an uncomfortable situation. So how do we get out? What kind of defense do we use if we are in a spot for change where we're used to failure? Well, we do things that put us closer to failure. We get to the fridge after we finish tracking our macros. We go and do all these things we talked about. We don't meal plan. We have one cookie and then we're like, well, let me just have a few more, without really realizing what's happening. All those actions are defensive actions that you're taking to keep yourself safe from getting into an uncomfortable place, which is change, which is you becoming a different version of yourself. And that takes a transition. And so we get to say, yes, I was correct. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this to succeed in this. I knew I wasn't going to win. I knew I wasn't going to lose that weight because I was going to mess up. I wasn't going to track my calories. I was going to sleep in, all those things. I knew I was right. And then what do? You repeat it again, over and over and over. And it becomes what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. So the reason self-sabotage happens is because we want to be right internally, and it bleeds into our actions. And that's what ends up happening with self-sabotage. It becomes a very self-destructive pattern, but it is also self-fulfilling because we want the concept of being right so badly that even if it puts us into a negative space, we're going to do it. So how do we beat that? How do we unlearn that? Well, we have to move through different levels of consciousness here. The first thing to realize with beating self-sabotage is, do I need to win that badly? Do I need to be right about myself? First, we have to ask ourselves that question, like, do I need to be right about myself? And then the second question has to be, what is this idea about myself that I have? And that is where you start to really address the root cause of self-sabotage. What is this idea of myself that I so desperately want to be right about? What is that? Can I define that person? And as you start to define yourself more of who you are, what you believe in, all these things, all these truths about yourself that you believe, you get to then ask that question next. Well, do I need to be right about all that? Is the truth about myself that I don't deserve to have the success I want, to achieve the weight loss I want, to have the body I want, to have the food freedom I want, to have all these things? Is that true? No? What am I doing then? Why do I need to be right about that then? Okay, cool. Most people have no idea and spend no time really identifying, figuring out the truth about themselves that they can dismantle, which is where self-sabotage comes from. It is one of the hardest things to address and get rid of because nobody starts at the source. The source is you. The source is figuring out what your identity is of what you believe in about yourself, and then asking the question, do I need to be right? And if some of those traits are good and they help you towards that goal, then you get to go, this is one trait I do want to be right about. But damn, why do I need to be right about the fact that I'm not going to succeed in anything? That sounds crazy. When you start to actually put it down on paper and read about it, you're like, wait, is this really a truth that I believe in myself? That I need to be right about this? No? Okay, cool. Then I'm not going to be. I'm wrong about this one trait. Cool. What else? That this next diet or this next plan, this coaching program isn't going to succeed for me? Why? Why am I so afraid to say that I could be wrong about that? Why does that need to be true? Because it's been true in the past? So what? You get to decide that, right? This is your time right now. Whether you are on the move, you're doing things, you're listening, you're focused on yourself, whatever it might be, right now is the time you get to say, I am allowing good things to happen in my life. I am going to allow the things that I try to succeed. And I'm allowing myself to be wrong about who I am. That's your choice to do right now if you want to. If you want to stay in the same boat, have the self awareness to realize you choose to stay there by accepting these truths about yourself. But if you don't want to, you get to now say, I can allow things to happen in my life that work for me. I can allow things to be easier. I can allow myself to succeed in these things that I try. And if you can have that real conversation with yourself, the next time you go to do one of those self-sabotaging habits, you're going to sit there for a second, I can promise you, and you're going to go, do I need to be right? Does this truth really need to be real right now? Or do I get to say, you know what? That one cookie was enough. Like, I'm good. I don't need to be right about this. The old me would have said, yeah, you know what? You deserve this. You should do that because you need to be right about yourself. You must know yourself so well that you got to be so right about yourself that you're going to have 4 more cookies. We get to be wrong all the time about ourselves. So this is that moment when you get to choose whether or not the future is you're gonna allow yourself to succeed or not, or if you're gonna continue allowing the bad cycle to continue. This is the path to breaking self-sabotage, and it doesn't happen overnight. It happens after repetition of going through those patterns and going, you know what? I'm not right about myself with this. This does not need to be a self-fulfilling prophecy where I say everything I try doesn't work. Things that I try, I can't accomplish. One of my best friends in the world, love her to death. She is, and we've talked about this many times. She is the definition of self-fulfilling prophecy of nothing will go right for me. And then guess what happens? Nothing goes right for her. She talks about this a lot with dating. And so I will I'll give you an analogy with this. She always says, every date I go on sucks. Every guy I go out with is trash. All these things. Every time we talk a lot, and she always talks about this. Every date I go on is like this. Well, this next day it's going to go the same way. She gets into a relationship and she's like, this guy's actually a really good guy, but like, let's just wait until it breaks. Something's going to happen. I know he's going to screw me over. Religiously, every time it happens. And you know what she says? I knew it. It's true. I was right. Like almost proudly at this point. And I love her to death. But this is a trait that I've realized, and we've talked about this. And it's a very good example of a self-fulfilling prophecy coming true. She expects that, therefore it happens. And why? Well, typically when we expect something like that to happen, we take on that energy and we attract that person to us or attract those results to us. We attract those actions that we don't do. Okay, it's the same thing in like business. It's the same thing with fitness and nutrition. If you're like, you know what, I'm not going to succeed at this week. This is normal for me. This is a really busy, hectic week at work. I have kids on my plate I have to deal with. I have all these things. There's no way I'm going to get my meals in track and do all these things and stay on point with my calories. So what happens? You subconsciously go, no time anyways, not gonna even try to meal prep. Done. Then each day you're like, I'm just going to wing it. Fast food. You get to the end of the night, you're like, day's already done and ruined. Might as well have 4 more cookies. Another thing added on. So because of that thought you had initially of, you know what, this is going to be the case. I'm not going to succeed. You then do the things to make that true. I'm hoping everyone can relate to that and going like, damn, calling me out right now because it's normal. That's a very normal thing, by the way. And remember, I've been trying to phrase this to everybody a lot more recently when we call out these traits that happen. Good thing, man. Good thing that you guys have been doing that. These are all defensive traits to keep you safe. So I'm sure in the past, somewhere in your life, you had to defend your with actions that kept you in a safe spot, whether that be physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. Your children safe, your family, yourself, whatever. So good thing your body has the ability to be on defense and take defensive action for yourself. But now we get to say, you know what? I can take a step back. I don't need that side of me to come out right now. I'm actually going to allow good things to happen, and I'm going to allow myself to succeed and know that I am worth it. I am worth the week of slightly harder things to have a much easier life after. All right. My friend, again, relate back to my friend. She always talks about that with dating. And I'm like, well, it's crazy that we can expect the same men to come into your life because you're giving the same energy that they're giving. So you attract that energy to you. That's not woo woo. That's not spiritual. That's real. This is the energy I want. I'm portraying it. Give it back. Okay, cool. To yourself, you do the same thing. I don't think I'm going to succeed. I'm not worth this. Everything else in my life I've tried and I failed. Okay, cool. Your actions will reflect. So instead of trying to drastically change our actions, trying to be like, oh my God, I'm going cold turkey, I'm never doing this again. Can we start at the source for once, which is you, and understanding and believing that you are worth it and that you are worth taking those actions? Because if you can do that, that's how you break the cycle of self-sabotage. Give yourself 1 week to try that. Just 1 week, and you're going to see how much happier you are in your day-to-day life and how much more you actually get done towards your goals. I promise you, you give this one real shot for a week and you see your life change. Mentally, emotionally, you're going to see your family's energy change. You'll see your kids' energies change. You'll see that reflected in many areas of your life. But it starts with you. That is the pattern of beating self-sabotage. Okay, another easy, just to give you another analogy, so this clicks one more time. I teach business. I'm a business coach a business consultant coach for fitness coaches, okay, to grow their businesses. Same thing applies when somebody goes on to like a sales call, for example, and they're like, man, my last 3 calls didn't close, so this one's not going to either. I'm not going to get this client. What happens? It's not just some magic energy that shifts for them. They take the call differently. The actions, the real things happen where they change, and then they don't close and they go, yep, see, knew that was going to happen. It's like, well, yeah, you wanted it to happen. You wanted to be right about that. And so it was. So that's how we can change. That's how we can beat self-sabotage. It is real. It is within your power. And you have the ability to do it with just yourself. You didn't need me to tell you this. You didn't need anybody else. You can do this on your own. I promise you, you have that power in you. And it is worth me coming here to talk about that as many times as it takes for somebody to take action. I'm telling you, the day that you do, everything changes. I'm going to leave you with this really quickly. I know it's hard to do that, and we'll open up the floor for conversation if anyone wants to talk. I know it's hard to do that. And I know it's hard to be like, okay, I'm going to change this today because even though this isn't who I am, I don't do this normally. You don't really have to be. I hate the phrase fake it till you make it, but I like this phrase. I like this idea a little bit better. I think I did that. I don't know if I did this on a last call with Ryan and his group, but I really like this because I am a nerd and I love superheroes. And I always like to use this analogy. If for people with like Batman and Bruce Wayne and Peter Parker, Spider-Man, Clark Kent, Superman, right? They're alter egos. I always ask what the difference is for everybody. I used to put up two pictures. I'm like, what's the difference between Clark Kent and the difference between Superman? The difference between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. People always said like the mask, right? The cape, the suit, whatever. The real answer is that nothing's different between either of them. Nothing is different. One simply allowed themselves to let out their power. One gave themselves permission, and it happened to come from the form of an outfit, right? A cape, a mask, whatever, a helmet. One gave themselves permission. Peter Parker still has the powers of Spider-Man. Clark Kent can still fly without his cape. But when he puts the cape on, he goes, I'm me now. I'm the person that I'm supposed to be. I can let out my power. I can let it all out now. Well, maybe there's a version of you in somewhere that has a helmet you want to put on, or a cape, or a mask, or something. And when things get hard, when things get difficult, where you want to self-sabotage, where you want to go do those things that don't lead towards your goals, you can think for just a second, like, am I holding my power back right now? Am I not allowing myself to be the person who I want to be? Maybe I can put on that helmet for a second. Like maybe I can wear the cape for just a second, even if that power is literally just putting down a cookie, or it's meal prepping for an hour, right? It's going to sleep at the same time. And so maybe you have that ability to do so too, and then you can take it off after. And eventually you keep it on for longer and longer and longer until you are just Superman, until you are that version of yourself that is there full time. That's not faking it, that's being it, until you're that all the time. That's my small talk on beating self-sabotage. My goal with these is never just to be motivational and like rah, 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 and then you do nothing with it. My goal, because I've been to a million of those talks, and you feel good in the moment and you're like, yeah, let's go. And then nothing changes. And then we have to have this talk again 50 more times until finally something clicks. So my goal is to be actionable for you guys. So the actions first, you go sit down with yourself. You take 5 minutes while you're sleeping, while you're alone, while you're in the shower, whatever it is. When you have some time alone, just sit with yourself. I ideally write this on paper so it gets out and it's real. Is who do you believe you are? What traits do you have for yourself that you believe in so wholeheartedly that you have to be right about, along with the traits that are holding you back? What are these things you believe about your path for success that you have to hold so tightly onto that you continue to self-sabotage? Write them all down, everything down. I don't believe I'm worth this. I don't think I deserve this. I don't know if I can do this based off of these things. Okay, I don't think I have the time. I don't have the energy. I'm not a good leader. I'm not a good this. I'm not a good that. Now list the positives. I am these things. I know wholeheartedly I'm a good mother. I'm a good father. I'm a good partner. I'm all these things, whatever it might be. And when you have that list, I want you to then ask the questions. Do I need to be right about every single one of these? And which ones will I refuse to be right about? And I promise you, the ones that you refuse to be right about are the ones that are triggering your self-sabotage. Okay. Then after that's done, you go about your day, keep that thing with you. And when you notice yourself in those patterns of self-sabotage, I want you to pull that thing back out and go, do I need to be right? Do I really need to be right about this? Or can I accept that I'm wrong and that's good? And slowly but surely, you're going to be chipping away at that little piece of you that doesn't think you deserve this. Over and over and over again, you're going to put on that helmet and go, nah, I don't need to be right this time. I'm going to go ahead and put the cookie down. I'm going to go ahead and actually meal prep for an hour. And then afterwards, you get to go, yeah, I wasn't right. But I was right about me being a good this, and that. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now we move on. That's your action steps there. I want you to also imagine and think about the helmet, the cape, the mask, whatever it is, the version of you that you want to be, whether it's this badass mom who accomplishes all these things while having kids. You're on the move. You're doing all this. Great. Put that helmet on. Who is that person? Picture that. Who's the person you need to be that gets these things done? Remember, you can put that on at any time, especially when those habits are getting tough to break. That's your real action to beating self-sabotage, not just some motivational stuff. And I'll be curious to see who actually pulls through and does it, because it takes you deciding that the pain of staying the same is worth the change now, right? That's my little chat on self-sabotage. I really hope that was helpful and it landed for you all, and that it resonated in some way, shape, or form with the current life that you're living. You have the power to change whatever you want to change and be whoever you want to be. So those are just some steps to do that. And I think self-sabotage is one thing that we all go through constantly, and it's something that needs a little update here and there from multiple sources. So I hope this is at least one source that can pull you in of going, you know what, I think I can beat it, and going out and doing that. You have the rest of the day to do that, the rest of the evening. I'm sure there's going to be some choices today that you normally would self-sabotage yourself with. Figure that out first. See if you can beat it today, just one day, and you can do it again tomorrow. So let's see what happens. Hope you guys take action on those things. I'll be happy to open the floor up for any type of questions, any comments, anything you guys have to talk about this if there's any points. Audrey said, definitely can tell a boost in everything, especially confidence, when I make small wins of success through my day towards my goals. 100%. Totally. All that is proof for yourself. When you get those small wins, it's just proof. It's you going, all right, yeah, I'm worth it. Great. Awesome. And you keep the ball rolling. Of course, Molly, thank you for listening. Ryan, I hope that was helpful.
I thought it was super helpful. I always get excited for it, and like I would love that reminder of the Spider-Man and the Peter Parker, because that's always something that I always forget too. But one thing I don't know if I like golf, if you guys didn't know. And one like analogy that always comes to mind is I golf with different people all the time. And you see people's like core personalities come out. If they're like a negative person, they're like, oh, it's probably lost, it's probably gone. I probably don't have a good shot. And if like for me, I'm like, why worry about it until you know? Like you don't know the outcome until you're standing over your ball and you're looking at your next shot. But like in the meantime, why stress about it? So like if you know this week's going to be hard, you have like Caleb said, you have two choices. You could either be like, I know it's gonna be hard, but like screw it, this is gonna be hard, and I'm not gonna be able to make it work, and I'm gonna have to take a drop up there and stroke penalty, my whole round shot, my whole week shot, my whole month shot, this whole program shot, compared to like, man, this is a hard shot. Like I do get up there, man. I gotta I do have to drop. I have to whatever. But just stressing about it compared to like getting up there, analyzing and moving on, that's like one thing that's like I swear it's my superpower. I always say things genuinely work out for me. And I mean that with like the weather. Like if it's a tsunami in Wisconsin, I'm like, and I got a tea time at 4 o'clock. I'm like, yeah, I bet it breaks by like 3:59. And sometimes it does. And it's like it's just that power of kind of like hope. I don't know if it's because I'm Christian. I don't know if it's because like I just so many bad things happen to me. I'm like, couldn't get any worse than this either. Right. And like, someone might prove me wrong there, but things genuinely work out for me. Like, and I think the same thing can happen to you guys if you have that mindset going into it. Like my macros happen to fall pretty close to exactly how I wanted them to almost every day. And it just, I meal prep? No, but I have a shit ton of things that already set me up. I have a bunch of carrots in my fridge. I have a bunch of like protein already cooked and packed and like in the portions. So I guess like, yeah, I'm very certain, but it just works out for me because I didn't put it in my tracker the night before. So, but it also took me 3 years of consistently tracking to build a little skill set.
Yep.
Right. So like Audrey said, like building that proof on yourself is another big thing, but also just doing something different one time, that's all it takes. So if like for me and parenting in general, I feel like if I sit down and I like chill out and I like take a moment to breathe, I might just collapse for the rest of the day. So I always choose like what's one more thing I could do for my business, my life, my family, my health before I like succumb to that guilty pleasure of just chilling on the couch. And that's another thing is like, man, I really should take the dog for a walk. Man, I think maybe my kids would want to go play basketball for a little bit if I just ask instead of sitting here in front of the TV and zone out. Right. So maybe like if there's anything kind of like trigger for you guys in that, like what is one more thing that you could do to kind of like, because if self-sabotage comes when you're sitting on a couch, well, do one more thing before you get to the couch. Or self-sabotage comes at like kids go to bed, that's when the chips come out. One time, what else could you do? Like throw in a little pattern interrupt. If you're like, this time's coming, it's 8:32 on a Wednesday night. This is when I crack the bottle of wine. This is what I do. This is who I am. Well, what else could you do? And just like open the floor to that. Anything opening ideas. Or you guys can just stay muted. It's cool. I'll just keep talking and having fun, Caleb.
If you were here, if you're a silent observer just listening, I hope it
Yeah,
resonated. It's all good.
I'm always good for a tangent.
Yeah. Ryan, I appreciate you allowing me to come in and speak again. It's always fun to come to your groups.
Heck yeah. And if you guys do have any questions for Caleb, he's on Instagram, or just message me and I'll connect you guys. Yeah, where can people find you if they need to?
Yeah, man. Instagram's the easiest place. I put out a lot of content on there, and my DMs are always open to talk to people. I don't care if it's about fitness, business, literally anything. If you want to talk about things we talked about today, if you're like, oh my God, I'm having trouble doing XYZ, I will send you as many voice messages and resources as I can to help. This is my name on there. If you want to come shoot me a message, give me a follow and talk to me. I'm happy to give you anything I can to help you improve your life. So that's where you can find me. I appreciate you all for listening. And Ryan, I'm happy to come back anytime.
Cool. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Of course, brother. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good one.
All right, see ya. And if you guys have any other questions, like right now, feel free to send me a message or your coach a message. You're like, hey, Caleb, kind of like open my eyes for this. Let's chat about it. Now is a good time to go send that. Okay. All right. Have a good night. Thanks for coming.